Hi friends, welcome to this tutorial for the tumbled glass crochet baby blanket pattern. This is a 1-row repeat pattern based on granny spike stitch, so it's a very easy to memorize blanket pattern. The borders worked entirely in single crochet to really highlight the beautiful color changes but also contrast with the body of the blanket. I used a weight 3 yarn. This is Queensland Fiji. It's 100% superwash merino wool. And then you're also going to need a 4.5mm crochet hook, scissors, a tapestry needle for weaving in ends, and some stitch markers for when we do the border. So let's go ahead and get started. All of the details for this baby blanket pattern can be found at my website, dananeal.com, which I will link in the description. It's a free pattern on my blog, or you can get the ads-free PDF at Ravelry or Etsy for a small cost. So go ahead and get a slip knot on your hook. For our swatch, you can chain any multiple of 4, so I'm just going to chain 12. Row 1, you simply single crochet in each stitch across. So I always like to work into the back bump of the chain. So what you'll do is you'll turn the chain towards you and you should be able to see these back bumps. The first bump is hidden a little bit by the working yarn. This is the bump you'll want to work into. And simply complete your single crochet. The reason I always like to work into the back bump is you get a really nice finished edge, which makes it really easy to identify your stitches when you're working your first round of the border later on. And you should end up with one less single crochet than your starting chain. So we chained 12 for this little swatch for the video, which means we should have 11 single crochets. Having trouble getting into that back bump. There we go, for the very first one of the round. All right, chain 1 and turn. It's a little more conventional to chain 2 ahead of double crochet rows. I always prefer a chain 1. I never accidentally work into my turning chain that way, so that's a personal preference. If you would prefer to chain 2, feel free. All right, row 2, we're going to double crochet in the first stitch. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch and work 3 double crochet in the next stitch. So a little hard to see since we've got the navy kind of color here that we're starting with, but we're skipping a stitch, work 3 double crochet into the next stitch. All right, and that is our first cluster made. Next, we will skip 3 stitches and repeat across. So skip 1, 2, 3, and then here we're going to work our next cluster of 3 double crochets. All right, skip 3, 1, 2, 3. You should have just one stitch left in the row. At the end of the row, we're going to work 2 double crochet. So like a partial cluster in that last stitch. So 1 and 2. So there's row 2. These look like traditional granny stitches right now. Well, they are traditional granny stitches right now. The spike stitches happen in the next row. So go ahead and chain 1 and turn. For row 3, we are going to double crochet in the first stitch, skip 1 stitch, so that's the second stitch in our partial cluster from the last row. And then in this stitch, we are going to, this is the space before the first full cluster. In this space, you're going to work a double crochet, spike stitch, and another double crochet. So begin with your double crochet. Now the double crochet spike stitch is identified in the special stitches section of the pattern. But what you'll do is you're going to work into the stitch from 2 rows back. So down here we can see 3 stitches we had skipped from row 1. And again, it's a little hard to see with this gorgeous dark yarn, but we've got 1, 2, 3. So that middle stitch is just beneath where we want to work our next stitch. That is where the spike stitch is going. So begin as you would a normal double crochet. Insert your hook into that stitch and pull up a loop. You're going to want to extend it to the height of your working row so that your work doesn't bunch up, and complete your double crochet as you normally would. There's your double crochet spike stitch, and we'll do that again soon. And then we'll finish this cluster with another double crochet. So this is your first spike cluster made. Now we're going to skip this cluster and do the same thing again. So double crochet, do your next double crochet spike stitch. So again, you'll want to identify, okay, here's our 3 stitches from row 1 that we had skipped. The middle one is where that spike stitch is going, directly beneath where we should be working that next stitch. So yeah, begin your double crochet as you ordinarily would with that yarn over. Insert your hook, pull up that loop to the height of the working row, and complete your double crochet. Then work 1 more double crochet into the space. And you do that across until, once again, there should be 1 stitch left in the row. So we've got our cluster here, and then here's our 1 double crochet that started the previous row. We will work 2 double crochet, again another partial cluster, in that last stitch. And the reason we do that, we have to like start the row with 1 double crochet, end with 2 double crochets to give us, I mean, you can already see more or less straight edges. I think that might be the hardest part of the pattern to memorize, but what helps me is thinking, okay, I began this row with just 1 double crochet, so I have to end with 2. Like you're going in numerical order. Start with 1 double crochet, end with 2. So I hope that's helpful. All right, chain 1 and turn. And then row 4, is very, very, very similar, basically identical to row 3, where you're going to double crochet in that first stitch and then work your spike cluster in the next stitch. So we're doing it before we get to the first spike cluster here. So double crochet, spike stitch, and again, it should be even easier, I think, to identify where you place your stitches next, because you've got your cluster here and you're working into the top of the middle stitch in that cluster. So yarn over and working into the top of that stitch, complete your double crochet. Then, and you might have to use your fingers to re-identify the space here, do that last double crochet in the space before the next cluster. And repeat. Skip this cluster, work your spike cluster into the next stitch. So double crochet, again, identifying which stitch here is the middle stitch. That is where your double crochet spike stitch goes. And then working into the space again, do your last double crochet. So it's a really nice stitch to close up those holes that are found in the typical classic granny stitch to make for an even warmer baby blanket. Skip this last cluster and in the last stitch of the row, do your 2 double crochets. Now, because we're working on such a tiny swatch, we're not seeing all of those gorgeous color changes the way you would when you're working a much wider pattern. And so I am going to work a few more rows on my own so that we'll come back and then you can start to see those color changes. All right, let's talk about the border. So it's a simple single crochet border, but the first round takes a decent amount of setup. There's a lot we have to compensate for, but then after that it's very, very simple and straightforward. So we still have some gaps up top here because there's nothing to fill them in. So as we begin the top of the border, we're going to be filling in some gaps. We'll work into the sides, which is always, a fun, tricky thing when you're doing your first round of a border. And then down here, we're going to have to do some decreases to compensate for the differing stitch counts that we'll have up here. So I will get more into that as we go along. Working across the top, you'll begin with a simple single crochet in the first stitch, and then we're going to do another spike cluster, but it's going to be made up of single crochets and a single crochet spike stitch. So first single crochet in the space, then do a single crochet spike stitch. So just basically you're not yarning over before you insert into the top of the middle stitch in that cluster. And again, pull up to the height of the working row, complete your single crochet, and work your last single crochet in that space. You'll skip this cluster and repeat across. So single crochet, single crochet, spike stitch, single crochet, skip that cluster. In the last stitch, we will end with 2 single crochets, but this is also going to be our corner. So to round the corner, we're going to be doing a chain 1 space, and then I always mark my corners just to make them super easy to identify later. So chain 1 and then 1 more single crochet in that same stitch. Then you'll work down the sides. We're aiming for about 1 stitch per row end. Again, you'll just single crochet down the sides. This beautiful minty green sure is easier to see than some of the darker colors, so I hope that's helpful. Then I give all the suggested stitch counts if you're following the baby blanket tutorial exactly. That is in, or the baby blanket pattern, I mean, exactly, this is the tutorial. All of those suggested stitch counts for a border that lies flat are available in the pattern. Alright, and then when you get to the first stitch along the bottom, that's where we're going to place our next corner stitches. So you'll single crochet, chain 1. I'm going to grab another marker, and then work another single crochet into that same stitch. Now, along the top, we ended up with 9 stitches across, excluding our chain 1 corners. But if you remember, we chained 12 to start this swatch, and so we have 11 single crochets in our first row. So we need to decrease in order to get our stitch counts to match. Otherwise, we'd have some ruffling going on at the bottom here. So the easiest way to do that, we're single crocheting. So that's our first single crochet of this side. Work another single crochet. And then we're decreasing. So in order to do a decrease, we're going to do a single crochet 2 together. Oh, excuse me, we're going to do 1 more single crochet. So we did our corner, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, then do your single crochet 2 together. And if you've never done a decrease before, it's super easy. All you do is begin as though you're doing a normal single crochet, but don't finish it. Then insert your hook into the next stitch and pull up a loop. So you'll have an extra loop on your hook. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that is your single crochet 2 together. All right, we'll single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And we'll work another single crochet 2 together. So insert your hook and pull up as though you're working an ordinary single crochet. Then do that again in the next stitch. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. You'll do that across until there's 2 stitches left along the bottom. So you'll single crochet in the next stitch, and then work your corner stitches in that last stitch. So got my yarn tail is getting a little tangled with the working yarn here. All right, so in this final stitch, got pulled a little tight, you'll do your single crochet, chain 1, place your marker, single crochet. And then once again, just working along the sides, aim to place about 1 single crochet per row end. So when you get to that beginning corner of the round, you're going to do a single crochet, chain one. Again, I always mark my chain ones. And then you're going to slip stitch join to that first stitch of the round, which might be a little tricky to see there, but there we go. All right, chain one and turn. All right, now round two and beyond are all the same. So we had, again, a lot of setup for this first round, but now we should be cruising. So what you'll do is you're going to single crochet in this chain one space, which is super easy to identify because it's marked right there. And then you're going to single crochet in each stitch across. So because we're on the wrong side, we're going to be working down the side here. So go ahead and single crochet in each stitch across. And then when you get to the corner, which is conveniently marked, you will single crochet, chain one, move the marker, single crochet all in the same stitch. And you're going to repeat that all the way around. All right, I will meet you at the start to show you how to finish the round. At the start of the round, you are going to work your single crochet into that same chain one space, which is actually still marked because I never moved the marker yet by design. So do that single crochet, chain one, now move up the marker and slip stitch join to the first stitch of the round. Chain one and turn. And the rest of this pattern you're going to repeat round two. I did 10 rounds of the border for a nice thick variegated border. So you'll single crochet in that chain one space and in each stitch across, single crochet, chain one, single crochet in the corners. I did one more round of the border just so you could see a little bit more of these gorgeous color changes, which again, you get much more of that like gratification when you're working a larger project and you can see these pebble-like stitches in the body of the blanket peeking through, and then yeah, the border's just, it's so pretty when you have the rapidly changing colors to give you that nice contrast for this blanket. So once you are done, you join with your slip stitch and then fasten off, or you can do an invisible join. I'll link up a tutorial on that if you're interested, and I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at any time. I've got a contact form on my website. Happy crocheting!